Welcome everybody to Career GPS Juniors. This is our workshop series that we do at the beginning of every semester to orient each class to what's coming up for them at Beyond Barnard and how they can be thinking about various things related to career plans, graduate school plans. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin. I'm a class of 84 and I'm Associate Dean of Beyond Barnard. And joining me today is my colleague, Eurellis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eurellis Canales. I am part of the Advising and Programs team here at Beyond Barnard, and I serve as an advisor and program coordinator.
Excellent. And I'm just going to share my screen, which will actually share some of that information we just did, official titles, etc. So welcome. Start with we each found a picture from junior year. This one's been out on Instagram. We dug this up a couple years ago when we were doing Career GPS, but this is me. I am a Barnard alum, and so this is me. I believe it was the end of I think it was spring of my junior year. It was finals. A couple of things worthy of pointing out: the big giant 80s bug glasses is one, and the fact that I was writing by hand and looking at actual books as opposed to online. Also, you can see tea and medicine in the corner there. I had a really bad cold and got through finals that year, hopped up on Sudafed, among other things. So, but that was junior year, and I was a history major and had just made that decision, made a big decision junior year to add an education minor and do some teaching, which I was originally going to try out teaching for a year or two and ended up teaching in the public schools for 10 years before transitioning to some other things that eventually led me here back to Barnard. And so that's me, that's junior year. And by way of a little introduction. And Eurellis, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, that is me, my junior year. So I actually graduated from Southern Connecticut State University with a degree in social work. And at that time, that is something that I wanted to pursue. I was also involved in other various things at the university. As you can see, that is my typical orientation ambassador picture, part of the reason I went into higher education. So as many of you all, I'm sure you all are involved on campus in a variety of ways. And that was just a portion of my experience at this college. I soon found myself getting my graduate degree, my master's in student development and higher education at Central Connecticut State University, and that kind of led me here. My junior year was full of changes, as I'm sure all of yours are as well, and hopefully we can cover some of that during this presentation today.
Excellent, thank you. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about, where you're at and our experience of where you're at from what we see year by year as people evolve and sort of move through the class years and graduate and on up. So we'll talk a little bit about taking stock, and then about a couple of different topics through the lens of junior year and what you can be doing. And we'll end with some action steps and some time for questions and answers. If you think of questions along the way, as I said, you can certainly put them in the chat, and we'll either stop along the way or we'll save them for the end, depending on how things go. So, junior year, you are, I guess, about a month past the halfway point, if you want to think about it that way, for those of you who will be graduating in, taking the full 8 semesters. Some of you probably are already thinking about graduating early or may have already decided. But in any case, we're past the halfway point. Not to scare you in any way, but it is a good time to take stock and sort of think about where you're at and where you'd like to be. So that'll be one of the frameworks that we use today to look at some of these things, is to encourage you to take this moment in time, the beginning of your junior year, and to think back. You've had a couple of years here at Barnard. They've been a couple of quite tumultuous years for everyone because of COVID and the lockdown and everything else that's been attendant during this crazy time. But also in spite of all the uncertainty, everybody is also looking ahead, and junior year is a good time to start, looking ahead, not only to what you want to accomplish this year and in your senior year, but to, start looking forward to life beyond graduation. Some of you probably think about that a lot. Some of you maybe not at all. Some of you are in between. And part of what we always do in this GPS series is we know that people are at different points and different starting points, and we want to try and take that into account. So, so that's one of our sort of themes of today, is sort of looking back, looking forward, looking at where you're at, and what you're pleased with and what you might want to add to the equation. So one question to ask is what are you feeling confident about? And another way that I've structured this for today is to look at the sort of three main buckets that college students can draw on to ask some of these questions, as well as to bring to the job search, the internship search, graduate school applications. You know, you want to draw on all three buckets. First and foremost is the academic bucket. You are students first and foremost. What are you feeling confident about in your academic work? What are you feeling confident about in your campus involvement and leadership? And what are you feeling good or confident about in your professional experience thus far? And professional experience, there's actually a little overlap between the two, the bullet 2 and bullet 3. Campus involvement and leadership often is professional experience, in the sense that you are learning skills there that carry over into your work and into your future plans. Professional experience does not need to be limited to paid work. It can be paid, it can be unpaid, it can be extracurriculars. The idea is, are you gaining experience? Are you using skills that are relevant to the workplace or to your academic future if you're planning on graduate school? So, so actually we've got a relatively small group. Let's pause for a second and have people put in, again, either in the chat to us individually or to the group or on mic. What are you feeling confident about at this moment for many of these three buckets? I can't see the chat. Can has anybody put anything into the chat?
Not yet. You all can also unmute yourselves. It can be something small, anything that you're feeling confident about. Thank you, Emma. Academics and campus involvement. Absolutely.
But okay, so, and then within that, any specifics? So for instance, most of you declared your major sometime last year. How are you feeling about your major as you sort of jump into more in-depth courses potentially this semester? Or what are you taking on new on campus? Or have you started an internship? What's catching your interest? What's making you feel positive?
Okay, Bessie and Emma, thank you for sharing. So Bessie stated that's quite challenging. I'm assuming you're talking about your courses. So you're feeling like your courses are getting a little bit more intense maybe, and that is, you know, a very normal sentiment and feeling to have for sure. And Emma sharing that it's exciting, and Emma's also looking forward to studying abroad in a program that incorporates both of their majors. That is exciting, Emma. Emma, what are your programs that you're studying?
I'm a political science and French major, double major.
Excellent.
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing.
And I think, you know, it brings up an important point, you know, having declared your major, you know, it's possible that sometimes people will change their mind and continue to feel a little insecure. But once you've declared that major, it can sort of feel like a relief after that big question, you know, hanging over your head first year and sophomore year, especially if you were undecided or continuing to explore and evaluate things. You know, it's that sort of constant question that people tend to get asked the first couple of years. And it's nice to be able to answer that question. And on the more pragmatic side, to dive into some of those higher level courses. So any other comments before we move on? I'm going to just do the same thing, have you share in the same three categories. What are you feeling concerned about within any of these three categories? What's on your mind? What's worrying you? Anything in the chat?
Yes, so Bessie shared professional experience and finding an internship. So that's something that they're concerned about. And Emma shared being able to juggle all three without becoming overwhelmed. Mhm.
And I think that, definitely one thing that happens is as you take that deeper dive into your major and you're taking more demanding courses and possibly moving into more leadership positions or more defined roles within some of your campus involvement, that can be difficult. And then when you layer on the pressure of internships and work, various things you're doing that are not only building your professional experience, but perhaps helping support yourself, it can be a lot. So time management is a challenge for everybody, and we'll touch on that a little bit. So I guess the final thing I want to say on this slide is that, again, back to taking stock, there's always going to be things that you're feeling positive about and then things that are worrying you. And the idea in talking about it here is to sort of get some of that, to the forefront of your mind, possibly share it with us, and encourage you that if you are feeling particularly concerned about any of these three areas, obviously Beyond Barnard doesn't focus primarily on academics, although we can certainly talk to the issue of your major and sort of transferable skills to the different things you might be interested in pursuing professionally. And with all of these, we're here to help you translate these experiences, your academic experience, your campus involvement and leadership, and your professional experience, whatever combination of campus job, off-campus job, internships. We're here to help you translate that into your resume, your cover letter, your interviews, and help you continue to sort of formulate how can you, share your accomplishments, share your experience, share your skills with graduate schools, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit about some particular areas of things you can be doing. First up, we'll talk about exploring career options. So again, you may be in potentially two different places here. How many of you would say that your post-grad plan is undecided, and how many of you would say that your post-grad plan is clear? So in the chat, just put either undecided or clear. We'll take a little poll.
Okay, we have 2 undecided so far. Someone saying somewhere in the middle, clear, but not completely clear. Another undecided. So a lot of people kind of still in the mode, like, I'm not sure what I want to pursue, and still kind of exploring that.
Cool. So there's some similarity in both cases. And again, one of our key messages today is that Beyond Barnard is here for both, and of course, everything in between. So if your post-grad plan is undecided, the career exploration process in general has these 3 steps. First is self-knowledge. It's looking within yourself, either on your own or with help, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then it's exploring, and then, sort of assessing, some key things about yourself and what you might be looking for. And then it's exploring options. And, so it's internal and then external. And then after going through that exploration process, choosing a focus does not have to be a lifelong focus. And that's one of our key messages and one of the key truths about the world of work, really for decades now. But very few people choose a single path and stick to it. Very often there's going to be variations. There are going to be some slight shifts, some major changes, as you go through your career, as you go through your life. life. So, so when we say choosing a focus, we're not putting pressure on you have to pick a single focus and the single career for you right at this moment. But it is something that you want to move towards so that you can then do some experimenting, and do some research and take some internships and, test out some of the things you might be interested in. So that's the basic career exploration process. If your post-grad plan is clear or a little bit clearer, say you're absolutely certain you're going to go to medical school at some point, or you are certain that you would want to become a teacher or work in the nonprofit sector or work in an organization whose mission resonates with you, if you've got some clarity there, you still need to do the process of self-knowledge. You want to look at yourself and sort of assess what's important to you and what your skill set is, et cetera. And then you still, even within that path, want to be looking at assessing options and gaining more information about what the possibilities are within this path that you've somewhat defined. And then from there, you want to create a timeline or a plan and sort of gather as much information as you can about how things work. So within your particular sector, for instance, is a junior year, a post-junior year internship super important? Is, and so is that something you should be thinking about now? If you're thinking about graduate school, do you want to go straight away? Do you want to take a gap? And what's, timing for that? If you are planning to go into a particular sector, what's the recruiting cycle for that? Like, do they start recruiting fall of your senior year? Or are you more likely to apply starting in February or March of your senior year? So just getting a little bit of a sense once you have some clarity about your path, about how that's going to time out. So, sorry. There we go. Okay, so I want to just go back to this for a second. So, and so again, just to reiterate, one of our main points at Beyond Boundary is we meet you with wherever you're at. So if you've been here before, and we're happy to meet you again. If you've never been here, happy to have you come in for an appointment or come to another event like today's. If you have a very clear plan of what you want to do, we're happy to talk with you about some of the options within that path and the timeline. And if you have if you're still in the exploring phase, we're happy to help you with all of that. And I'll give you some specifics in a minute, some specific actions that you can take and that we can help you with. But I want to bring up one issue that often comes up, which is we often hear students say, I have an atypical career choice. I want to go into something that's very unusual for Barnard, and everybody else is doing something else, and I want to do something different. I'm planning on doing something different. And our answer to that is always this graph. All right, this is based on the class of 2020. We are currently gathering data from the class of 2021. We have a survey out that will end in November, and we'll be able to share that updated information after that. But the point of this graph is there is actually no such thing at Barnard as a typical career. People will, when you ask people, where do Barnard where do Barnard graduates go? A lot of people say, oh, everyone goes into finance. Oh, everyone goes into the arts. People have a tendency to exaggerate the numbers of how many people are going into different fields. What this graph shows us each year is that, for instance, for the class of 2020, the single highest category is education, and it's only 17%. And so some of these other breakdowns, you can see that it's generally true. I think that education was a little higher than it usually is. I think that might have had something to do with COVID and what people graduated into. Generally speaking, this graph over the years has shown us that it's very unusual for more than 11 or 12% of the graduating class to go into any one sector. So the basic point here is that if, however typical or atypical your career path feels to you, there is a Barnard graduate somewhere out there doing that. And we can help you find them, and we can help you find resources on anything you can think of, even if it doesn't fall neatly into one of these categories. So some action steps you can take. We have a career exploration toolkit. It's on the on the CourseWorks model. And this is a combination of some exploratory tools, some open-ended questions that you can write or have somebody ask you. It's got a couple of other exercises and some additional information about different ways of approaching career exploration. There's definitely a process, and we can help you through it, or you can make your way through the toolkit. Career exploration is a topic on Handshake. So if you go to make an appointment, you can choose that and meet with any one of our staff about that and have a preliminary conversation, or it may lead to a request to take our career assessments. We offer a number of assessments that look at things like personality, skills, values, and interests, and you can take one or more of those. They're not magic. They don't tell you what to do, but they can be a really helpful exploratory tool to answer some questions, get some ideas, and then from there, sort of proceed to exploring some of the different options that might come up. You can find out an awful lot about different paths online, and you also can find out a lot by talking to people. We're going to talk about networking in a moment. Networking is not just about job seeking or internship seeking. It's also about gathering information and establishing relationships around an initial conversation about experiences and finding out more about what a person has done and get their insight on a particular path. So any of those are can be useful. And I'll flesh the last bullet out a little bit when we talk about networking, which comes up next, strengthening your network. So key thing, you already all have a network, all right? And so one thing you want to do, back to taking stock, who's currently in your network? And so generally speaking, with networking, there's kind of layers to networking. We all tend to have a small group of trusted advisors. This could be super small. There could be just one person in your life that you're completely honest with about talking about the future, or, bouncing ideas off or getting help, or even just venting and that type of thing. You want to think about who's in that small group. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we all have a larger circle of people that we know. We may know some well, we may know some not so well. And the categories I'm talking about, and if you think about this, is, this could be your friends, classmates that you maybe don't know as well, but you are familiar with. It's family, both the nuclear and extended, and what's the term, the found family. It's your colleagues, right? You at any of your jobs or internships, could be people on the same level as you, people who are supervising you, people you supervise. And then many people have teachers, either they're current teachers or past teachers. There's advisors, again, you could still be in touch with some of your advisors from high school and other programs, but you also most likely have a circle of advisors here at Barnard, including beyond Barnard advisors. You may have met with us once or on a more ongoing basis, and mentors in general. So when you think about your network, you want to think broadly about all the different connections you have to people and who is in that small group of trusted advisors, and are there people you want to add to that inner circle. And one of the things we encourage you to do is, if you haven't already, to think about faculty, think about either someone you're currently studying with or you studied with over the first couple of semesters that you either really liked them or you really enjoyed the class, and you can solidify that relationship. There's no rule that says you can't go to office hours of a former professor or reach out to a former professor in addition to your current professors. And what I think you're looking for, it could just be a single conversation to talk to them about your interests, about your academic interests or your future plans, or it could become an ongoing conversation. But that's just one example. Similarly, your colleagues, if you work in an office here at Barnard, you can talk to people in your office on your program as well. And then you want to be thinking about who can you add to your network, right? So one group of people is, this group of people you already know, who do they know? All right. And you can do that by talking to them. You could do that if you're connected to people you already know on LinkedIn. You can see very clearly who else they might be connected to. And sometimes it's surprising. Sometimes people say, oh, nobody in my family is in medicine. I'm interested in medicine, so there's nobody there. But you never know. Somebody in your family, someone in your extended family might have connections to health careers in general, or to a particular, facet of that career, just as an example. And then the other people you can start to add to your network are potential employers. And so one thing as you're looking at a field, as you're looking at different roles, if there's companies or organizations that catch your eye as a really interesting place, you can begin to reach out to people who work there even before you apply to anything, even before something's been posted. And then a huge thing that you can add to your network, I'm sure some of you have already started to do this, but many people may be a little reluctant or shy to do this. There is a huge network of Barnard alumni out there that, because of the Barnard connection, are open to contact. And so whether you identify them through an event here at Barnard, or on LinkedIn, or through Barnard Connect, which I'll talk about in a minute, there's a huge pool of alumni who are out there who are doing all sorts of things, all sorts of roles that you can reach out to. I forgot to stop before and ask Urelis if there's anything you want to add to anything we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Christine's been hitting all the marks. I think the one thing I just really want to emphasize with you all is that junior year, right? You kind of want to start getting ahead of things if possible. And networking is one of those things you can start working on organically. And it doesn't have to be this huge, scary thing, right? Networking kind of gets a bad rep and it feels really scary, but it can be as simple as reaching out to the people that we have listed on the PowerPoint, connecting with alum. And I think the great thing about utilizing Beyond Barnard and Barnard alumni is that there's almost a sense that they have already opted in, right? So they feel connected to you all, and there is kind of like a buy-in, and they want to help current students and they want to see you all succeed. So thinking about different ways that you can network, for sure, try utilizing that. And it can be a less scary approach, and you'll get to meet a ton of people that are invested in your success. So I did drop the Barnard Connect link in the chat, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later down.
Great. And sorry, I had a thought that popped into my head and then it popped back out. Hopefully it will come back. One thing that I think this is coming. Yeah. So one, Urelis talked about networking. Sometimes people find it intimidating in general. Sometimes people understand it and are sort of eager to embrace it, but they get nervous about, well, how do you actually ask? So there's a little truism here that goes around. Ask for a job, you'll get advice. Ask for advice, you'll get a job. There's a couple things behind this. One of the reasons people are sometimes reluctant to network is they feel like, oh, I'm just going to this person and asking them for a job. How awkward is that? And the reality is that that is a little awkward. And that if you're reaching out to somebody who you don't know and who doesn't know you, not only can they find that a little off-putting, but there's also the simple fact that at any given time, most people don't have a job that they can tell you about, either in their organization or through their connections. So if you go straight for asking for a job, not only is it awkward potentially, but it makes it easy for them to say, oh no, my organization's not hiring, and that kind of ends the conversation. So part of what you're trying to do is get the conversation going and have a good sort of intelligent conversation that makes a lasting impression, so that then that down the road can lead to something. So instead of leading with, does your organization hire interns? Is your company hiring? Do you know of any jobs? You lead with asking for an informational interview or a chat, and the thing you want to ask for is advice, insight, perspective. You say to somebody, I'm interested in finding out a little bit more about working in the nonprofit sector, and I would love to hear about your experience and get some advice. That's an invitation that most people can say yes to. Then you have the conversation. And then from there, it could be in that moment, or it could be down the road. They may hear about a job. They might be able to connect you to an organization they know is hiring, or you may see a job that pops up at their organization or somewhere where they know somebody, and you can circle back at that point. But you've built this foundation of this conversation around advice. So something worth thinking about. And some of our more specific action steps. So LinkedIn is a centerpiece to networking. It's not the only game in town, but it is, it's, what do they call it, a sector dominator. They really, they're a major player in this space, and they've grown and grown. So, so if you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile recently, or if maybe you haven't even created one, you want to take a look at that. It's a good habit to get into updating your LinkedIn profile like about once a semester. Could be at the beginning, could be at the end, but it's helpful to go in. You might want to update or add a picture. You might want to tweak your summary. You might want to add an experience maybe that you had over the summer, or some of your relevant coursework. So there's always something you can sort of add to freshen up. This is a great thing to make an appointment with one of our PCAs for. You bring your laptop, they have theirs, you both look at your profile together, and they can give you suggestions on ways to improve your LinkedIn profile, and some specific ideas on how to do that. Going back to that slide where we were talking about people you already know, connect with them. It could be on LinkedIn. It could just be reaching out to an email, somebody you haven't talked with a while, and say, hey, just wanted to touch base, let you know that I decided on this major, and that I'm actively exploring, internship options for the summer, and just wanted to see if, you had time to talk, or just let you know what I'm up to. Join or log onto Barnard Connect. What's great about Barnard Connect, as Eurelis was mentioning, is it's kind of like LinkedIn for Barnard only. So students opt in and alumni opt in. And so I think one of the things that students really like about that is that you know that the alum has volunteered and is willing to talk to students. They also can set parameters on their side of how often, so how often they talk, and what things they're willing to talk about. So it also takes away that, oh, I'm bothering them kind of feeling that people sometimes have with networking. And what we found we launched this 2 summers ago. What we found is about a 90% response rate. So in other words, when you send a message via Barnard Connect, you are going to hear back a lot of the time. LinkedIn, the advantage to LinkedIn and looking for alumni there is that it's a much broader pool. There's over 20,000 Barnard alumni on LinkedIn, but it's also not opt-in, and so they may not check. They may be busy. And so probably it runs more of a 50-60% return rate, which doesn't mean you shouldn't try on LinkedIn, but I think using both platforms can be really helpful. And so, given that, reach out to 3 Barnard alums that you don't know yet. That's another good action step. BB Weekly comes out every Wednesday, late afternoon, early evening, and a lot of our events coming up involve networking, in that, sometimes you're just sitting there and listening, but very often the alumni, if it's a single alumni or a panel of alumni, they'll share their information, they'll share their contact information. And so it becomes a good networking event. Also becomes a good opportunity to network with your fellow students who are interested in some of the similar things to you. Some of the things you can look for on BB Weekly, there's a lot of employer info sessions. Most of them are, I think all of them are virtual at this point, but if you're exploring and you're thinking about a particular sector, and a bank or a nonprofit or an artistic organization or a marketing agency is coming to do an info session, sign up for it. I'm going to let Eurelis talk about this. This is one of the programs she manages, but sign up for a Career Insights alumni panel. You want to give us a little preview of what's coming up on this series?
Sure. So like Christine said, I lead on our Career Insights programming. And that's when we have alumni from different careers and industries come and they talk on a panel and they talk about their experiences, their roles, their career trajectories, how they got there. And pretty much it's a space that Barnard students can ask their questions if they're interested in that particular field of industry or are searching for a career there. So we have some exciting programs coming up. Tomorrow, actually, we have our first one of the semester, which is our Career Insights for Computing and Data Science. So you can register for all of our Career Insights panels on Handshake, and we do have a wide variety and a wide breadth of different industries and careers that we cover. The week after, we have public interest law, and then the week after that, marketing and communication. So you can kind of see that we have a variety of different programming happening, and just keep an eye on Handshake for that. But that is an awesome way to collect with alumni, and they are often so excited to kind of share their wisdom and kind of their journeys to getting where they are. And you'll find that there is not a singular direct path to achieve their goals and their careers and how they got there. So definitely come. And if there's something that you haven't seen yet or is in your particular field that we have, you can always reach out to us, because we are always working and developing our programming so it can reflect the students here. So don't be afraid to reach out.
And one other thing that we're always careful to do on our panels is to try and bring a variety, a diversity of alumni. So marketing and communications, we want to represent, bigger organizations, smaller organizations, different roles within the communications field, not to mention a diversity of identities as well, in terms of whether that's age or ethnicity or whatever other identities are out there. I'm blanking for some reason on my list. Another thing that I think started this week, maybe last week, is our mentor in resident session. So keep an eye out for those as well. Those are Friday small group mentoring sessions. So and next Friday is alumni chats. I don't think I specifically put that on this, but that's another opportunity to meet in a small group with alumni. So keep your eyes open, BB Weekly, as well as targeted emails. So. Okay, so then we get to the applying part. You all may already be applying for things next summer. You might be applying for a fall internship. You might be applying for an on-campus job or a position somewhere in the community with different organizations. We want you to apply with confidence, and you're going to see some familiar bullets here. Again, kind of back to that, taking stock, what do you bring to the table already? And so one of the questions we get a lot, the PCAs tell us this, people will sit down and say, I don't have anything to put on my resume, or I think my resume is too skimpy, or it's not relevant, right? So we want you to think a little more broadly about what do you bring to the table, all right? And I'm bringing back my 3 buckets from earlier. And we really want to encourage you to think about all 3 of these. People tend to focus in on the professional experience part, and especially after COVID, when many people had summer experiences canceled, especially in 2020, or there's been, things that are remote or things that have changed. A lot of people are feeling worried about this, that, oh, I don't have enough to put on a resume. So you probably have plenty of professional experience to put on in one form or another. It might not be formal jobs or formal internships, but they're, one of the things that PCAs are so great at doing when they work with people on resumes is to help to draw that out, and help sort of do a little Q&A with you to get a better picture of some of the things you did. But your campus involvement and leadership is also a great place to draw from, as are academics. Specifically, in the more STEM and quantitative realm, it can be various projects, but you also can draw from, whatever you're studying, social sciences, humanities, you can include aspects in your education section, but also in a cover letter, talk about, your ability to write and edit and some other things we're going to look at in a minute. So think about all you bring to the table, from all of your different levels of involvement. And then you also want to think, again, taking stock, looking forward, what in-demand skills and experiences can you add to your qualifications? So as you've been looking at internship descriptions, job descriptions, what are they looking for? And are they looking for skills and experiences you might not have yet, but you could add? And so take a look at, do you want to choose some courses, that incorporate some of the things that people are looking for? Maybe you have, a writing requirement still out there for Barnard. Maybe you have a something in the quantitative realm that you need to add add, it's helpful to think about that. And then in addition to traditional courses, we have all of the centers at Barnard, the Empirical Reasoning Center, the Movement Lab. There's various centers there where you can do a workshop, do sort of extracurricular type of thing. And then of course, there's tons of stuff online for learning specific skills. And then again, if you're looking to add particular skill sets, maybe finance, budgeting, something like that, thinking about what roles you can take on within your student organizations that you're involved with. And as well in your jobs, in your internships, asking for training, asking for, I know a little bit about Excel. Could I take on that project and learn more? Can you show me how to do this particular thing? And then that adds to the bullets, that adds to the skill set that you can emphasize. And just to, list some of these, you don't have to have all of these, but transferable skills, and these can be transferred. The idea here is that a skill can be transferred from the academic world, from any of the thing, and transferred over to the thing you're applying to. And so some of the things that an employer or an internship might be looking for, got a whole list. I think I tried to put them in alphabetical order. So just think about, as these come up, think about, where have you used this? Have you used this in class? Have you used this in leading a club or organization? Have you used it at work? Managing down, managing up. This is an interesting, have you been in charge of anybody? Have you ever had to train anybody? Have you had a professor? I mean, I'm sure all of you have learned how to manage different types of professors. How do you figure out what's important to them, and how do you make sure that happens? Same thing can happen at work, and then there's the more traditional sense of managing, which is how do you manage a group of people, or how do you manage somebody who works under you? That's a skill set. A lot of you are officially our mentors or have informally mentored people, whether in high school or college. Project management with a capital P, capital M often refers to IT project management, but project management as a more general term is anything you've done, so perhaps you've managed a project in a club or organization, writing a paper, doing a big research project. Those are all skill sets. Creating a timeline, gathering what you need, breaking things down and moving through them point by point. You've all had to do some research. Basically every paper you write, exam you write, program you create, you have to synthesize complex ideas. A lot of you have trained or taught other people. You write and edit every day, one form or another. So these are just the beginning of a list of the idea here is to sort of prompt, many of the things that you already have experience. And then if you don't have experience with them, how can you gain more experience? All right, so where we want to see this confidence is by using best practices. So put together your best possible resume, cover letters, LinkedIn profile, do your best to develop your interviewing skills, and then at the end of the process, develop negotiating skills, understanding how to accept a job or internship offer. Can you negotiate the terms of it? What are the protocols if you have one offer, you're waiting on another? These are all things that we can help with in terms of best practices. And it leads me, I think, this leads me to Career Skills Week, where a lot of these topics are going to be covered. So next week is Alumni Chats Week, and then the week after that is Career Skills. So we're going to be doing a session on resumes, and then cover letters. Eurellis is going to be leading that. I'll be in the background. Networking, if you want to delve into that a little bit more of the how-to, and then interviewing. So this is basically, these basic building blocks of things you need to know. And even if you feel like, oh, my resume is in pretty good shape, but let me come more, or I know how to write a cover letter, but I hate writing a cover letter. How can I, get more comfortable? How can I make it easier to do that? So definitely sign up for those. You can register for those via Handshake right now, or if you forget, you'll get a reminder in the BB Weekly, as we mentioned. So here's some action steps. There's lots of resources, both on Handshake. So if you click Handshake, Career Center, and then resources, we've got lots of samples of things. We have videos, etc. And then we have a YouTube channel as well with lots of these recorded things. So if you're wondering about a specific thing, You always can make an advising appointment. The wait times have been a little bit crazy lately, but be patient and make the earliest possible appointment. And then if something comes up that's more time sensitive, you can always reach out to us and ask to move up that date. We have a fellowships database. That's a great thing to be exploring as a junior if you haven't explored so far. The big famous ones are, Fulbright and Rhodes, and they're super competitive, although Barnard students compete very well for those. But there's also lots of smaller fellowships that support all sorts of things, teaching and research and the like. If you're not finding an internship, out there that seems perfect for you, propose an internship. And then speaking of that, apply to, if you've got an internship and it happens to be unpaid, you can apply for funding through us. And the deadline for that is next week.
Christine,
Yeah.
if I
Yes.
can just jump in for a second.
Absolutely.
Regarding the advising appointments with our peer career advisor. So
Oh, yeah.
we have a wide breadth of times and dates available for you all to meet our peer career advisors. So if you're feeling like Christine said, in a time crunch, or you already have an appointment scheduled with a professional advisor, but it's a little while out and you'd like to get some set an appointment a little bit quicker, they are available. They do 30-minute appointments, and they are just such a wonderful resource at Beyond Barnard. We rely on our peer career advisors heavily. So if you're looking to get like an initial appointment for resumes and cover letters, especially those kind of appointments, you can check on Handshake, and there is just such a variety of times. So I just wanted to emphasize that super quickly.
That's a good point, because there's a long wait time for staff and there is a much shorter waiting time for PCAs, and PCAs are awesome doing things like, as Urella's already mentioned, but they also can do interview prep with you, give you networking advice, go over your LinkedIn profile, as we mentioned. So, and so just when you click, sometimes I think people get confused when you click on Handshake and click on appointment, and to make a new appointment, two categories come up: peer career advising and then career counseling or career advising. If you click career advising, it's going to take you to the staff. That's fine, but there is definitely a wait time, of at least a couple weeks lately. If you click PCA advising, there is, I think, less than a 24-hour wait time for most categories. So great. Okay, so I just want to, we're going to end by having you identify a couple of action steps and then take a few questions if you've got them. One last thought before we get to the action steps is that routine is more important than time or numbers. So it's interesting when we're working with people, especially on a job search, they'll say, well, how many hours a day should I be job searching? Or how many jobs should I apply to? We'll talk that through with you, and sort of there can be some targets, but to me, and this kind of goes to something we said at the beginning about time management, it's the routine that's more important. And what I mean by this is looking at your schedule and setting aside some time for whatever you're working on: job search, internship, updating your resume, exploring a career, networking. You want to set aside some time. It could be a few minutes, a little chunk of time each day. It could be a chunk of time on the weekend, or maybe it works better for you. But look at where in your schedule could you put a little bit of time to give some thought to these and to do some of these action steps and sort of get rolling on this stuff. It doesn't mean, it's not about being behind or getting ahead. And it's not even about you have to do this constantly. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing at this moment, but to make sure that you're checking in, every once in a while, like once a week or maybe once a month on some of these things that you'd like to accomplish career-wise or career exploration-wise. So take a second and think about we've suggested lots of action steps throughout. You might have thought of some of your own. So take a second and at the very least, jot down for yourself, could be on your phone or if you got a piece of paper handy, what are 3 things you're going to do sometime after this workshop? And if you're willing, share them in the chat. Just be 3, could be 1 or 2, but I'd love to see what kind of things kind of caught your attention and seem like a good thing to get started on. Yep, a couple people had to duck out. That's fine. We'll send everybody the recording. Anybody have an action step they're willing to commit to, at least to the group? We're not going to really hold you to it, but sometimes the research shows that if you say out loud, I'm going to do X, that it helps. Excellent. So what do we have to do, Eurelis, for them to get? I think if you email Beyond Barnard and ask to be added to the career exploration kit, we can do that. I also, we'll check in and see, we might be able to do like a bulk upload as well, you know, just sort of send out the invitation to everybody. And actually we could put, yeah, so that's a great one. Explore the career exploration toolkit. Any other action steps anybody wants to share? Okay, so while you continue to do that, we definitely want to so keep doing that, but also let us know if you have questions. We'll open the floor. I'm going to stop. Well, I think I'll keep sharing because sometimes the Q&A brings up good, I'll stop sharing, but keep the recording on. So any questions, feel free to share in the chat or unmute. Absolutely. So we you'll get an automated email tomorrow. We follow up with everybody who registered, not just even those who attended, and it will include a link to the recording. So yeah, absolutely, you'll be able to hear it. And then we send out the link to the Zoom link to the recording, and then usually about a week later, it gets added to our YouTube channel as well, so that you can reference it in the future. Any other questions, thoughts, encouragement for your fellow juniors? Junior year is great. It's like, you know what you're doing pretty much Barnard wise. Again, I know COVID interrupted a bunch of things, but overall, you know what you're doing, but you don't have that immediate pressure that some of your friends who are seniors are feeling of, like, you know, oh no, only one more year and then I have to have a plan or something, to have something in place. All right, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to thank you, Alice, for planning this with me and joining in. And I think next semester she'll be leading one on her own. And as I said, we're also going to team up next week, in 2 weeks, on the cover letter topic. So we hope to see you there or elsewhere.
Great. Thank you so much.